connected to the natural world for the first time in the poem. Instead of shooting albatrosses and wearing dead albatrosses about his neck and complaining about slimy things, now he suddenly sees the beauty in it. And it's interesting that it's an aesthetic, emotional reaction, the the apprehension of beauty that leads him to this emotional change, to God's grace, in a sense, entering him through his kind saint, or through God himself, entering the ancient mariner and allowing him, without even consciously knowing it, that he's blessing the snakes. Once he blesses these water snakes, he's named them, now he's blessed them, he communes with them. He's at one with them. He is not different. He's not separate from creation. He is part of God's creation and linked to God as a creature in creation, not linked to God as a rational thinker who models God's rationality, as in the Enlightenment thought. Then we get the last stanza of part 4, and Coleridge is great with ending these parts with just killer stanzas that are a real jumping off point or a stopping point. They're a real teaser, almost cliffhanger, where you oh my gosh, this is happening. For instance, at the end of part 1, where the narrator admits in the last stanza, I shot the albatross. Here in part 4, we get a stanza that reads, so he's blessed the water snakes, and the final stanza reads, the self-same moment I could pray, that very moment I could pray, and from my neck so free, the albatross fell off and sank like lead into the sea. He doesn't do anything to remove the albatross. I guess that's the aspect of Christian grace that Coleridge is indicating here. It is through the sacrifice of others, Jesus on the cross, or this albatross, who's a stand-in for Jesus, or a Christ-like figure in this poem. Here, the albatross leaves him, leaves the ancient mariner. He's redeemed, but this is an interesting redemption, because it doesn't totally free him from the problem he's faced with life and death. Life and death is still going to dog him. When he comes back to land in part 7, through this kind of miraculous rescue, he still has the problem of dealing with life and death. It's almost like an alcoholic with a drink, or a drug addict with his fix. He needs this fix. He needs this drink, whatever, to feel whole again, because even though he's been redeemed, he's constantly in the process of having to hold on to that redemption in the face of the modern world, its alienation, its life and death, its lack of spirit. So, what's interesting about the poem is the ancient mariner's act of storytelling becomes his own personal means of redemption. It's, in a sense, God has given him the grace to redeem him and lose the albatross around his neck. But he's going to have to do something to maintain it. He's not going to have a free ride, so to speak. He's going to have to do something. And that act is not a rational act. It's not really even an act of faith, so to speak. It's a creative act. He has to retell his story to people that he sees, whom he thinks, this person needs to hear my story. This is at the end of part 7 of the poem, about the 10th stanza from the end. He says, since then, since he's got back to land, at an uncertain hour, that agony returns. And that's that agony he felt of being alone on the wide, wide sea, being the property, possession of life and death. Since then, at an uncertain hour, that agony returns, until my ghastly tale is told, this heart within me burns. So this is an ongoing issue that he's going to deal with. Coleridge is suggesting this is an ongoing issue that we all have to deal with, whether you're religious or not, trying to see the spirit in a culture, civilization that is more and more denying human spirit, denying humans' connection with nature, and separating humanity as this special, materialistic, evolved species, especially in the later 19th century, after the theory of evolution becomes well known, that humans are this self-evolving, self-redeeming race that can purify and perfect society through its own actions. Well, Coleridge, as a Christian, does not believe that. He believes in the idea of sin. The ancient mariner has sinned. He's been forgiven his sin, so to speak, but it's still sin, and it still separates him from that connection, that power, higher power, God, whatever we want to call it. So that's why his act of storytelling brings him back that sense of calm, that sense of connection, the sense of wonder he felt when he was able to see the water snakes for what they really were. Not just slimy things, but these incredibly beautiful things. So he looks for the type of person that essentially was him before he was redeemed. He knows who he's looking for. He knows what to look for in a face. When he sees that person that's ignorant of the spiritual world, complacent about his existence, into material things more than spiritual things, essentially a person who is suffering from life and death and may not even know it. That's why he chose the wedding guest to tell his story to. He saw something in the face of the wedding guest that made him think, this person needs to hear my story. He's far too connected to material things, the wedding as a party instead of as a sacred sacrament, The wedding guest, was interested in the wedding because of his place in the wedding. I'm next of kin. Mayst hear the merry din, the party's going on. I want to be in there. But at the end of the poem, in part 7, he explains, I pass like night from land to land. I have strange power of speech. Here's that idea of the romantic poet as this person that is connected through a blessing